Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is next part of laws of motion. So in this part we will discuss about Newton's laws of motion. Let us first recall what we have learned in previous part. So we have learned about the uniform circular motion. The motion of a body moving with constant speed along a circular path is called uniform circular motion. In UCM, we learned that the speed is constant, but the velocity changes because the direction of the object in a circular motion changes at every instant. Then we defined force as the push or pull of an object with mass which causes it to change its velocity. And we then discussed about the types of force. There are two types of force, that are contact force and field force. Field force is also known as non-contact force. Contact force are such force when an object from external world touches a system and exerts a force on it. For example, frictional force. Whereas field force are such a force when object can move without something directly touching it. Example, gravitational force. So I hope you have watched the previous parts. If you haven't watched the previous parts, do watch it. The link is in description. Let us start with the today's class. So Newton has proposed three laws of motion. We'll learn them one by one. Now these laws of motion are very important as they have many practical applications in our day-to-day life. The first law of motion. The first law of motion states that an object continues to remain at rest or in state of uniform motion along a straight line unless an external unbalanced force acts on it. So this is a statement given by Newton, and this statement is nothing but first law of Newton. So what is the actual meaning of this statement? Let us see now. Basically, the statement means that one object is there. So that object will keep doing what it was doing unless we apply some force to that object. For example, if the object is still, so it will remain stationary. If we don't apply any force to that object, if the object is stationary, it will remain stationary. If the object was moving at a constant velocity, it will keep moving with that constant velocity only. For example, I have a book kept on a table. So it is on the table, it is stationary. And when you apply certain force, then only it will move. If I'm not applying any force, it will be stationary only. Now I'm traveling a car with certain velocity, let's say 30 kilometer per hour. Now, if I'm not accelerating the velocity of the car will not increase. So when the object is stationary, it will remain stationary. If it is moving, it will keep moving with that same velocity unless and until we will not apply any force on that object. So it takes force to change the motion of an object. So when we apply force, then only the object will change its motion. So this is what is simple meaning of first law of motion. So again, we'll read the statement. An object continues to remain at rest. Means if the object is stationary, it will remain stationary or in a state of uniform motion. If the object is moving with a constant speed, constant velocity, it will be moving with same velocity unless an external unbalanced force acts on it. Unless we will act a force on that object, the object will remain stationary, or if it is moving, then it will move with a constant velocity. And when we apply the force, it will change its motion. This is a simple meaning of first law of motion. Now let us discuss about unbalanced force. If the forces of an object are equal and opposite, they are said to be balanced. An object experiences no change in motion. If they are not equal, then forces are unbalanced and the motion of the object changes. What is the meaning of this statement? Let us understand with an example. So here I have a book kept on a table. Now on this book, there are two forces acting. One is the gravitational force, which is pulling downwards the book. So this is my gravitational force. Gravity pull downward the book. And one more force is there as the book is in contact with table. So table is pushing the book up in upward direction. But you can see that the book is still stationary. It is kept on the table and the book is not moving. It is stationary. It is still. Why it is still? Because the force acting on the book from downward direction, that is a gravitational force, and the force acting on the book from the table, that is pushing upwards. These both the forces are equal. Now, when the force acting on the object are equal and opposite. As you can see, one force is upwards, one force is downwards. Both the force are equal and both the force are opposite. So they are said to be balanced force. And the object experience no change in motion. Thus, we can see there is no change in the motion of the book. The book is stationary. But if there is no balanced force, means the force are not opposite. Also, the force are not equal. That force are known as unbalanced force. For example, here you can see in the first example, you can see from the left side 300 Newton force is applied. From the right side also 300 Newton force are applied. So both the force are opposite, also equal. So these are balanced force. So there will be no change in the motion. But in the second case, you can see from left side 300 Newton force is applied and from right side only 100 Newton force is applied. So these forces are not equal, though they are opposite, but they are not equal. So here there will be change in the motion, and wherever the force is greater, the object will move there. So here the object will move in left direction because the force is more here. So I hope you understood what is unbalanced force and balanced force. Let us see some real life examples of first law of motion. A soccer ball is sitting at rest. Now, this is soccer ball I have kept in a ground. Now, it is at rest. It is still, it is stationary. Now it takes an unbalanced force of a kick to change its motion. Now when I just kick this ball, it will move. So what I am doing, I am applying force and I am applying unbalanced force. Why unbalanced force? Because we have seen that only when unbalanced force is acted on a body, then only object moves. If we apply balanced force, then there is no change in motion. So only unbalanced force, if we apply, then there will be motion of the object. So this is two teams are playing tug of war, same example. They are both exerting equal force on the rope in opposite direction. This balanced force results in no change of motion. So if equal force is exerted from left side also, right side also, there will be no change in the motion. So this is nothing but balanced force. Let us see one more example. Now here we have one box and this girl is applying a force from this side. Let us say this is 5 Newton force. Similarly, one more girl is applying a force from opposite side and this is also 5 Newton. So from left side, we are the girl is applying 5 Newton. From right side also another girl is applying 5 Newton force. Both the forces are equal and they are opposite in direction. So net force will be 0. The object will remain there only. It will not move either towards right or towards left. So balanced forces causes no acceleration. There will be no motion of the body. When we talk about unbalanced force, so here you can see the force acted by this man is much greater than force acted by this child. So from this arrow, we come to know if the arrow is bigger, so bigger force is applied. For example, this is 10 Newton force and this is 5 Newton force. So where will object move? Object will move in this direction as the force applied towards right is greater. Now this is an example of unbalanced force acting in opposite direction. Now in the second picture, you can see both the children are applying force on the box in same direction. So this child is applying 5 Newton, this is 5 Newton. So my object will move in this direction only because there is no other force acting from opposite direction. In only one direction we are applying the force. So in this case also it is an unbalanced force. So unbalanced force causes acceleration while balanced force do not cause acceleration. So I hope you understood clearly what is unbalanced and balanced force and why we need unbalanced force only to act on a body, because unbalanced force only will change the motion of the body. Now Newton's first law of motion is also called law of inertia. So there is another way of calling Newton's first law, that is law of inertia. Now what is inertia? Inertia is basically the tendency in an object to resist the changes in the state of motion. resist the changes. Or you can say it is a tendency of object to be in a state of rest, to be stationary. The first law states that all objects have inertia. More mass an object has, more inertia it has. Let us see some examples of inertia. Now here you can see that when we shake the tree, the fruits are falling from the tree. So have you ever wondered why the fruits or leaves fall down when the branches of the tree are shaken? It's due to inertia of rest. Before shaking, the branch is at rest, but when the tree is shaken, the branch starts moving. Tree shaken means when we are applying an unbalanced force. So when we apply the force, the branches starts moving, whereas the fruits and the leaves remain in the initial state. Thus they fall down. Before the tree, fruits all were in the state of rest. But as soon as we apply a force on the branches, the fruits and leaves started falling down. So this is an example of inertia. One more example of inertia is when the bus stops suddenly, people fall forward. Now, when this driver apply brakes, you may have noticed that when you're sitting, people fall forward. So you get a jerk and you get fall forward. So when your driver of a bus brakes suddenly, the lower part of the body comes to rest as the bus comes to rest. Now when you're sitting, your lower part of the body is on the chair, on the seat. So when the bus stops, the lower part of the body also comes to rest. But what about the upper part of the body? The upper part of the body is not in contact with the seat. So the upper part of the body continues to move forward, and this is due to inertia of motion. Inertia is also of three types. One is inertia of rest, inertia of motion, and another is inertia of direction. So this is an example of inertia of motion. As a result, a forward force is exerted on body and we fall in the forward direction. Let's see one more example of inertia. You must have seen athletes running before taking a long jump, but have you ever thought on why they do so? So before taking long jump, the athletes run a certain distance. Why? So the reason is quite simple. They just want to change their inertia because first they were at rest, right? But they want to change the inertia of motion from inertia of rest. From rest, they want to change the inertia to motion so that they can jump at a long distance. So it makes it easier for them to take a long jump. So this was an example of inertia, and I hope you understood the first law of motion. Let us solve some questions. If objects in motion tend to stay in motion, why don't moving objects keep moving forever? So what is the question? The question is, if an object is tend to stay in a motion, why don't the objects which are moving, they keep moving forever? Why they stop? So the reason is things don't keep moving forever because there is always an unbalanced force acting upon it. For example, a book sliding across a table slows down and stops because of the force of friction. So force of friction is nothing but unbalanced force. Now you just take a book and on the table, you just apply a certain force on the book. It will slide, but after certain time, it will stop at a particular interval of time. So why it will stop? Because there is a force of friction between the surface of the table and the book. So this is nothing but unbalanced force. Because of this unbalanced force, the moving objects, they will not move forever, but it will stop at a certain time. If you throw a ball upwards, it will eventually slow down and fall because of force of gravity. Now, when you throw a ball upwards, after a certain interval of time, it will stop and it will come down. Why it will come down? Because gravity is pulling the object downwards. We are throwing the ball upwards, but the gravitational force, which is acting as an unbalanced force, it is pulling down the ball towards the ground. So that's why the moving objects will not keep moving forever. At a certain time, they will stop. They will change their direction. In case of ball, it has changed direction. We have thrown it upwards, but due to gravity, it will eventually slow down and fall downwards towards the ground. Now let's take a summary of first law of motion. So here you can see a football, an object at rest will remain at rest. unless acted upon an unbalanced force. Now, when I kick it, I am applying some unbalanced force. So firstly, it was at rest, but when I kick it, an object is in motion. Now it will continue with the constant speed and direction unless acted on an unbalanced force. Again, I will act some unbalanced force. I want to make a goal. So I will change the direction of the football. So this is what a summary. An object at rest will remain at rest. If it is at motion, it will remain at motion with constant speed unless I am acting the object with an unbalanced force. Let us discuss some questions related to first law of motion. What is relationship between mass and inertia? So answer is mass is a measure on how much inertia something has. It simply means that if I'm considering two objects, my first object and this is my second object. The weight of first object is 10 kg and weight of second object is 5 kg. Okay. Now these are at rest. These both the bodies are at rest. Means they have some inertia. Inertia means state of rest. So they both are having some inertia. Now, if I want to move these bodies, I need to apply some force. Applying some force to this body and applying force to this body. For example, I've applied 5 Newton force on this body and the body starts moving. It starts its motion. But same force I have applied on this body, 5 Newton. But this body is not in motion. It is still at rest. Why? Because the mass. This body weighs 5 kg and the mass of this body is 10 kg. So in order to change the state of motion of the body weighing 10 kg, I need to apply greater force. So this is what the mass is measure of how much inertia something has. So greater the mass of the body, greater force I need to apply to change the motion of the body. Second question is inertia a force? So no, inertia is not a force. It is a property of the matter. It is a property of that body. Inertia is nothing but state of rest. So something as inertia means the body is at state of rest means it is having inertia. It is not a force or anything. So I hope you understood the first law of motion and what is inertia, and I have also explained you the daily life application with some examples. We'll continue the second law of motion and third law of motion in the next class. So if you like this video and found it interesting, do like, share and subscribe our channel for more such interesting videos. Thank you.